This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
Okay. Hi. So today I will be doing my presentation on standpoint theory, applications in cultural heritage conservation. My name is Georgie North, and I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, who are the owners and caretakers of the land where this presentation is conducted. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I would also like to share my positionality as a queer person of settler descent. So what will be discussed? So like I said, my presentation will be on standpoint theory. So although many variations on standpoint theory have existed and exist today, my focus will be on examining feminist standpoint theory. According to feminist writer Susan Heckman, it represented the beginning of a paradigm shift in the concept of knowledge, a shift that has transformed not only feminist theory, but also epistemology itself. She also believes its relevance is enduring, owing to its reflexive capacity and the ability for it to be pulled apart and reshaped for the use by marginalized groups. So I will discuss the history, evolution, and a critique conducted by Heckman. From this, I will introduce thoughts on how generalizations that may constitute a given standpoint can be mistakenly assigned to individuals and groups, and how this can be detrimental to cultural production and public engagement. I will introduce a situation that is currently unfolding, involving Georgian-born Naarm-based artist Nina Sanadze and her recent installation at the National Gallery of Victoria. Here I will briefly unpack how her standpoint on colonialism, by using imagery from colonial monuments in Australia, does not encompass all anti-colonial perspectives. To conclude, I will discuss where standpoint theory may be used effectively in fields such as cultural heritage and conservation research. So a brief history, evolution, and critical reception. So the concept of the standpoint, although not initially coined as such, was first theoretically introduced by Hegel in the early 19th century through the master-slave dialectic. Marx developed the concept in the mid-19th century by suggesting that people from an oppressed class have special access to knowledge that is not available to the privileged class. Standpoint theory was first coined by feminist philosophers Sandra Harding and Nancy Hastock in the 70s and 80s, who claimed that a woman's unique standpoint in society provides the justification for the truth claims of feminism, whilst also providing it with a method to which to analyse reality. So feminist standpoint theory has come under critical scrutiny for several reasons, the main ones being the inspiration for feminist standpoint theory, that is Marxism, has been discredited in both theory and practice. So essentially, at the time of the theory's development, the drivers of feminist standpoint theory did not provide a rigorous analysis for why the knowledge of the oppressed class was a viable one. So 2, feminist standpoint theory appears to be at odds with the issue that has dominated feminist debate, that is difference. So intersectionality was only considered later, and as a result, the development of an array of standpoints has been achieved and discussed. And the third point, the theory appears to be opposed to two of the most significant influences in recent feminist theory, postmodernism and post-structuralism. To summarize that, there are areas in the philosophical underpinnings of the theory that are contradictory and struggle to grapple with the subjective truths and objective perspectives. So, I guess one of the most significant theoretical developments of standpoint theory, alongside incorporating intersectionality, would be the departure from the notion that the ruling group's perception of reality is, according to Harding, partial and perverse, and that the vision of the oppressed exposes the real relations. Heckman introduces an idea imparted by Foucault that all visions are in fact partial and perverse, in the sense that all knowledge is situated, and that situation is constitutive of our knowledge. So in other words, the vision of the oppressed is itself another discourse. Feminist standpoint theory raises an important question in the feminist campaign. How do we justify the truth of the feminist claim that women have been oppressed? In other words, how do we accept alternative and multiple truths whilst maintaining rigorous foundations? If we take the multiplicity of standpoints to its logical conclusion, coherent analysis becomes impossible because we have too many axes of analysis. So here I'll briefly introduce Senatzi's practice to help illustrate how the positionality or standpoint of cultural producers can be used in institutions to represent a grand idea, but consequently obviates the nuances and perspectives. So Senatzi's work, which has recently come on display at the NGV, references Australia's colonial monuments in order to explore and question the emotional resonance of public art. The monuments referenced include Queen Victoria, King George V, and Edward VII, which are all situated in Melbourne. She replicates these monuments as flat, folding silhouettes on wheels. This installation presents these sculptures in a state of flux between being assembled or dismantled, drawing attention to the ideas of permanency and the ephemeral. So Senatzi's practice has come under scrutiny as to whether her perspective of offering critique to the colonial monuments is viable. The artist's recent activity in the Zionist chat platform, Z600, which was only recently leaked, demonstrates that the positionality of anti-colonial that has come from Senatzi's personally experiencing the consequences of colonial Soviet enduring does not translate to a similar understanding towards the state of Israel, towards Palestinian people. So the question is, who does Senatzi speak for when she engages in these political issues, especially within an Australian context? What is the NGV's role in platforming this colonial critique within what has only recently become an acceptable discourse for the public? Okay, so the ways that standpoint theory can be used in conservation, adopting and incorporating conceptual tools for practical outcomes. So I think as training conservators, we have entered the field at a really interesting time, where the philosophical labour of debunking true reality has been in effect for some time, and the deprivileging of a particular knowledge system, that is the Western scientific, is slowly being adopted in areas of cultural heritage conservation. So the issue is, however, that standpoint theory can only be engaged with with people who have an acquired language to interpret these discourses. I believe there may be of some use to standpoint theory research as a research methodology, but it is dependent on a number of questions and factors, including how do researchers determine the standpoint, and what are the ethics of writing from outside this perspective? What is their motivation for developing the standpoint? Will it be of use to the groups involved to achieve their theoretical and practical goals? And what are the criteria for determining a standpoint? So borrowing from Heckman, ultimately every person is unique. If we analyse each in their uniqueness, systemic analysis is obviated. So is feminist politics. We lose the ability even to speak for certain categories of people. If we acknowledge multiple realities, multiple standpoints, how do we discriminate among them? So, adjusting standpoint theory to adopt conceptual tools to adapt to the practical uses may be of use. So in the mid-20th century, Max Weber introduced the notion of the ideal type, which may be of use to standpoint theory's practical outcomes. His approach presupposes that analysis of the social world is engaged with by situated, engaged agents who live in a discursively constituted world. The concept of the ideal type accepts that no aspect of social reality can be realized without presuppositions. So as soon as we attempt to reflect about the way in which life confronts us in immediate concrete situations, it presents an infinite multiplicity of successively and coexistently emerging and disappearing events. He argues that we organise this multiplicity by referring to values, and specifically cultural values. Order is brought into this chaos only on the condition that in every case, only a part of concrete reality is interesting and significant to us, because only it is related to the cultural values with which we approach reality. It is the cultural values of a society that impose the ordering of the multiplicity of meanings that confront social agents. So, how is it that we acknowledge differences, but also formulate coherent analyses that result in practical and useful outcomes? Weber suggests that as researchers, we are guided by our individual value choices that determine the subject we are analysing. Without the researchers' evaluative ideas, there would be no principle of selection of subject matter and no meaningful knowledge of the concrete reality. The result of the researcher's choice is what Weber refers to as the ideal type, which may be described as the one-sided accentuation of one or more points of view, and by the synthesis of a great many diffuse, discrete, more or less present and occasionally absent concrete individual phenomena, which were arranged according to one-sidedly emphasized viewpoints into a unified analytic construct. There are neither hypotheses or descriptions of reality, but are like markers to which reality can be compared. They are neither historical reality or true reality, but limiting concepts that provide a means of comparison with a concrete reality in order to reveal the significance of that reality. And this is just one example of ways different conceptual tools can be incorporated into the theory to adjust the way that it may be used. So that's it for today. Thank you. Here are my references.